after years of war.
My dad is coming home. Bringing vengeance.
We made it, Tommy. The long
did.
adventure to the cinema screen. Just like Odysseus himself, it's taken us a long and torrid time to get here. But we have both seen the Odyssey, and what did you make of it? We're going to talk a little bit about how our viewing experience as well of the movie, because that's very important.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna start by saying that I really love this film. It's not perfect. It has a few things that didn't fully work for me, and we'll definitely get into it later. But it's a great cinema experience. It's one of the most memorable. I mean, like we talk about this a lot on this channel. Like, I go to the cinema quite regularly. I love to watch movies on the big screen, even if they're not like necessarily like the big event movie that you need to watch in the cinema. Just because I like the act of going to the theater. And but if you asked me like point blank, what movies I watched in the theater this year, I would probably be able to mention like 3 or 4 of the movies that I watched. So like, I think this was the like cinema experience that I had this year that I will remember for a very long time.
Yeah, I think we had it. We did a sort of awards show at the end of last year, beginning of this year, and we did a little segment on most anticipated movies, and I think this was both very, very high on both of our lists.
Yeah.
So I feel like I really need to see this film again.
Yeah,
It's one of those
me too.
Nolan films that would like really requires a second watch, because there's so much going on, there's so much to experience, and there's so much sort of expectation in that first viewing. But I really enjoyed it. It was as epic as it needed to be.
Yeah.
You know, it required that cinema viewing. There were some sequences in it which will stay with me for a long time. Had some really high highs. You know, I've got some criticisms of it, of course. Certainly not a perfect movie. Certainly not even a perfect Nolan movie.
No Nolan film is perfect. No film is perfect in general, so I think that's fine.
No. But yeah, I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed myself. Yeah, like I said, some really good moments here, and some things that will stick with me for a while.
How did you see it? Because one of the film's biggest selling points, of course, is it was shot entirely with IMAX cameras. And I didn't see it in IMAX. I already have tickets for a second screening next Thursday, but it's still not IMAX because there's no IMAX screens nearby me. Like, it's a huge screen, the one that I'm going to, but it's not IMAX. And the one that I went to see it on Friday, it was just a regular theater. It was a great experience, great sound, great movie, but I did not experience the film as Nolan intended. Did you?
I didn't. I also watched the movie.
So you are with the rest of the like 99% of the population of the world.
I saw the film in an Odeon cinema that was like had laser. It was a laser projection, so it wasn't like it was a bit higher standard than the norm. But to be honest, I didn't quite notice much of a difference between that and a standard sort of big screen. And I don't know whether this was, because I have heard issues with the mixing of the sound, as we always do with Nolan's films. The sound in my screening was very off, and at the beginning I was like, oh no, I need subtitles for this, dude. And I could hear my cinema was quite full, and a few other people said the exact same thing around me.
That's the beauty of watching an original VO movie in Italy, is that you get subtitles. So I went to an original voice film, the screening of the film, and it had subtitles, and I had no issues whatsoever understanding what people were saying.
but then also, you don't, you know, when you don't have to have subtitles on a film, it's great not to, because your eye is very much drawn to that lower third.
I am so used to subtitles, honestly. Like, I put them on anything that is not like Italian language, even if I understand English just fine. So
I had a couple issues with my audio. We're actually missing information. You know, we paid full price for our tickets, Tommy, and we're not even getting to see the whole of the Odyssey. There's corners of the frame that we are not seeing. There's
I don't know, man.
There was a shot I saw of the where they fight the giants in Yeah, and they have a big wide shot where Odysseus
They're
is
way
facing off
taller
against
in
the
IMAX, I'm
giants.
guessing.
Yeah, no, they're massive. And also, like, it does just show you that, like, I don't know, unless Nolan, when he's on set directing, he frames for one shot and he frames for another, and he is considering what both frames are looking like. But unless you're shooting it, unless you're doing it for one and then doing it again, doing another take for another frame, then we are seeing a reduced version of the vision here. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do, but I actually I saw an interview with Nolan, and this guy asked exactly this question, like, how do you compose shots knowing that most people won't see the full IMAX frame that you are shooting on set? And his answer essentially boiled down to, we frame the image so that cropping the top and bottom for standard formats doesn't meaningfully change the composition.
I mean, that's what I assumed they would do. And because I've been on set where they use cameras and they're going to be displaying the movie in different formats, and they'll put sometimes they put some tape over where that frame would be on the monitor, and it's like, well, yeah, we're not shooting it specifically for that frame, we're just cropping it down for that frame. So it is true, this isn't the whole vision of the movie. It's, obviously we're being a bit silly because you're missing edges of frames, but
I never felt like I was watching a compromised version of the film. It looked spectacular, and
yeah,
it was
for me
fine.
that was something I saw that still after I came out of the cinema, and I was like, oh, okay, I suppose that's something to note, but it didn't affect my viewing experience at the time at all.
Because I understand the appeal of an entirely IMAX movie, like on a technical level, like you're sitting there experiencing this massive movie with the knowledge that all this was shot with IMAX cameras. And for people who don't know, IMAX cameras are huge, they are heavy as fuck, and they make a lot of noise. And apparently Nolan's crew found a way, like a rig that manages to reduce the noise significantly. So they were able to capture a lot of very intimate close-ups and details using IMAX. And apparently a lot of the audio is actually recorded on set, which is rarely the case with IMAX because, the camera itself being so noisy, they usually record the audio separately and then, edit it together with the footage. And I feel like, it's interesting because this is new territory, because IMAX has always been used for action sequences and spectacle, like it's famously the Dark Knight trilogy, especially Dark Knight. Well, I think Batman Begins doesn't, but Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises have IMAX sequences that when you watch them, you literally see the aspect ratio change from scene to scene, from frame to frame, because there's IMAX moments spliced into the movie. But this is entirely shot on IMAX, and I think doesn't really change that much about the experience in the theater. You're watching it as a regular movie.
We've discussed the sort of technical aspects. We'll do a little setup of the story. I mean, it's a 1,000. I suppose before we move on from that as well, I mean, the technical aspects, IMAX is a maximum of a 3-hour run length. There was times when this film dragged a little bit, but I honestly felt like there was stuff missing, and this could have been longer than 3 hours. The story is a very long one, probably warrants itself more for a series than a standalone feature-length film. But
I would have watched another hour of this easily. It never felt boring or like it was
done. You could have made this over 4 hours and had a little intermission in the middle, something like that. I would have been totally down for that. Especially towards the final act of the movie, it does feel a little bit rushed. And there's bits from the books that we do miss out on here. So one of the oldest surviving works of literature and remains quite prevalent and influential today.
One of those stories that has been told in 1,000 different ways throughout the years and parodied, but it still remains,
Homer's Odyssey, like you mentioned, is a 24-book sort of ancient Greek epic poem following the hero Odysseus. After the Trojan War, he has a 10-year voyage back home to Ithaca, where his queen Penelope is waiting for him, and obviously during this time it takes a lot longer for him to get home than expected, and his wife has all these suitors waiting to sort of take his place as king back home. And for that decade that he's traveling home, he battles mythical monsters and faces gods, and whilst his son sort of worries and tries to go out and find him, basically. And
news of Odysseus, yes.
Yes, and it's kind of it's funny, I suppose. I don't know how often books from this time did this. Probably very rarely, but it's told non-chronologically within the original poems as well, right? So that kind of already
it's
we've got our
different.
Nolanisms. We've got our Nolanisms already
It was like,
here.
oh my
So.
god, it's out of order, so I can do it, like it's mine.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
in the original text, Odysseus tells the story of his journey to Phaeacians. I don't know how to say it in English, sorry. But like he there finds like another like he finds people, and he tells his story to them, including the chapter dedicated to Calypso. Like, and so that's the framing device. And there's also like stuff with the gods. But in here, this very smart decision that Nolan makes is to cut out that chapter that, to be fair, is not super essential. It's Calypso is asking him questions, and he is trying to retrace the events that led him there. And he recounts his journey, and it's very episodic because the Odyssey is episodic, but this framing device manages to bring that story together in a very meaningful way. So I thought, because he's trying to remember, and Calypso, which, to be fair, we'll get into the negatives. I thought Calypso herself was a little bit of a down, like one of the elements of the movie that didn't quite convince me. But
Same.
the idea of Odysseus kind of like finding his memories and finding the strength to finally leave Calypso's island and face his destiny, I think was a very inspired choice by Nolan. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how well they sort of, because it's his sort of rejection of this like paradise, like that
Yeah.
moment where he's with Calypso. I don't really know how well they translate that visually, and it was one of those moments, and there's a few of these in the film where the casting did take me out of the immersion for a little bit.
Yeah.
I just think Charlize Theron, she looks too much like herself. I don't know, and the performance was there's no voice being done. I just didn't buy her as Calypso, and there's a few other characters who I think not giving them, just giving them an American accent, letting them speak in their own sort of dialect, and
Yeah.
just the way they look did pull me out. Like, I don't know, I thought John Leguizamo, is that his name?
Leguizamo.
Leguizamo. I thought he was like, surprisingly, when I saw him first in the movie, I was like, oh, you're gonna take me right
He was
out of
great.
this. He was actually pretty good, but still, just like the look of him and his accent.
It bothered me at first with some of the actors, and I guess we'll get into the performances now. And Charlize Theron, for example, did not like it. It also, like, the performance itself, like, not even taking into account the accent. I felt like she was very disengaged. Like
It's very
she didn't.
wooden.
Yeah, and she's a great actress in other stuff. So I was like,
Yeah.
Nolan, what are you doing? Like, why is she this? She was very uninteresting as a presence in the story,
She
while
kind of has the
Calypso, like,
presence, like she's drugged up too, like
yeah.
she's on sort of loads of painkillers or whatever, and is all just being all fairy. But yeah, it didn't. The performance was just so placid.
But like, generally, I thought, like, the very because we were aware of this controversy of, like, the actors being American, and Nolan deciding not to implement a sort of like classical English to make it
And
sound more
and
ancient and more
who's
official.
in the very first shot of the movie, Tommy?
Is it Elliot Page?
No, it's Travis Scott.
Oh yeah,
Travis
the
Scott.
Bard. The Bard.
The movie opens with Travis Scott, and I was immediately, my immersion was broken, and I was like, oh, fuck's sake,
But
come on, man.
I thought that was an inspired choice, because he has the like end credit song, and he is the bard, kind of like telling the tale of Odysseus in Penelope's castle, I guess, in Ithaca's like palace, which it was distracting, definitely, that Travis Scott would be the bard, but like, and you get used to it. Like
only because he's not in it much.
Yeah, no, you get, well, not talking about Travis Scott specifically, but like in general, like even Matt Damon. And like,
see, for me, Matt Damon transcended in this role, because I think we both had our issues with him being cast, and we haven't spoken about this yet. But for me, I really bought him as Odysseus. He
was
really
fantastic,
sold me. Yeah, this is probably one of my favorite Matt Damon performances, if I'm honest. I was really worried that he wouldn't have the gravitas, but like, skipping a little bit ahead, by the time he comes back to Ithaca.
yeah,
And he's been built up as this legendary figure, and he's got the hood on, and he's pretending to be the beggar.
My God.
You feel how epic he is, and how cool and like how legendary he is. Like, so he really, I think he does a great job in this film, and that was one of my biggest sort of surprises, is how well he carried it. I thought his relationship with Anne Hathaway, like it felt genuine. I cared whether they were gonna get back together. Do you know what I mean? I was invested. Tom Holland as well was a bit of a surprise. I mean, I generally quite like Tom Holland in a lot of things, and I suppose when he's cast well, he's really good. But his performance was fantastic too.
I liked all of them. There was not one performance, except for Charlize Theron, where I was like, this could be better. But to be fair,
Mia Goth took me out a little bit.
She was in like three seconds of the movie.
I know. And I think it's Harold Remer. I think he plays the blind prophet from the underworld. James Remer. He is in it.
Okay.
And again, he's an actor I like a lot. But just he did his own voice, and when he's playing like a blind prophet who's come from the underworld, and he has like a generic American accent. A lot of that stuff did take me out here and there.
Yeah, I guess. Staying on the performances, I wanted to say, I agree with you about Matt Damon. I thought his Odysseus feels intelligent, and he's strategic. He's also deeply flawed. He's exhausted by everything he's experienced. It doesn't come across especially smart or cunning, which, Odysseus is in the text. But I think that's kind of the point. Like, he comes up with the Trojan horse idea, and, everyone is like, oh my God, you're a genius. And in the original text and many other retellings of the story, the way the Trojan horse is framed is, this is a genius military strategy. They took Troy after 10 years of war because of Odysseus' idea. But here we see the ugly side of it. Like, it's 10, 15 men stuck in an enclosed space for days with shit and piss everywhere.
That was quite good. I like that. That was like the most Nolan-y thing in the movie. It's like, how can we make this really cool, epic, like beautiful thing that's grounded in realism and show you how gritty and horrible it actually really is.
Yeah, and it makes sense in this case to not emphasize Odysseus' strategic genius, but rather, like, you portray him as a man. He's a courageous man with many followers, but he's a man, he's fallible, he's capable of experiencing guilt and grief. While, like the classic Greek hero, does not experience those kind of emotions. Like, he's portrayed as very stoic and, like...
Yeah. Is the portrayal of Odysseus in this film akin to the portrayal in the books? I have heard that because in the film, and I haven't read the book. So in the film, what I gather from the character is Odysseus isn't a very good person at all, really. We don't really see him ever being that good of a person. We immediately see him, rape and pillaging, or part of, the rape and pillage of Troy. We see him leaving men behind to die constantly. Is that akin to the portrayal in the books, or is he more of a classic hero in the book?
I think the interesting thing that Nolan does is it portrays what happens in the original text too. And I would have to refresh my memory exactly on, like that kind of stuff. But from what I remember, for what I looked up before this review, um, definitely the idea is, this happens, and this happens both in the movie and in the text, but Nolan decides to focus on stuff that the original text doesn't. So the idea that, Odysseus would feel guilt and grief over his decision to, you know, invade Troy, and like he is the cause of all this death and destruction that we see at the end in one of the best scenes of the movie. We're getting ahead of ourselves again, but the idea that Athena would be, like this vision that he has that kind of like reminds him of this mistake that kind of like haunts him, and also is the reason why he was put in this very difficult situation with his journey back home, and now how everyone that kind of like invaded and destroyed Troy suffered the consequences. Like in the original text, the gods are not these moral beings that you should look up to. They are conniving, and they are like selfish, and
Oh yeah, yeah.
so like
I mean,
Athena is not
the Greek gods are horrendous people.
Yeah, and that's the beauty
Yeah.
of like the Greek pantheon, right? Like they only do whatever is in service of their own self-interest, and they're very selfish. And the idea that Athena would be like, like in the original text, I think, like she wants to take revenge on Odysseus and his men, not because, they killed an innocent woman in her temple, but because they desecrated the temple, and they, like they disrespected her.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
like the way Nolan frames it is different. It's more like modern, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting when you mention Athena there, because it's like, is that really Athena?
Yeah, I
You
love
know,
that. I love that so much,
yeah.
man. Like
Like
the way they
Zendaya's
portray
not
gods.
actually Athena in this, really. She is what Odysseus has attached the image of Athena to, because she was the priestess who was working at the temple when she died, and she's now become like the embodiment of Athena. And it's where I have maybe some issues with the movie and some bits that I like. I like that Nolan grounds these things, but this is a mythological epic at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I do maybe wish we had seen a bit more of the god stuff, but I don't think I don't know how it would have fit tonally. Like, obviously we don't actually see Poseidon in it. Whenever Zeus is mentioned, we hear the crack of lightning, and that's it. Obviously we get the reveal at the end. Athena's not really Athena. So it is ground. It's almost so grounded that everything mythological that happens in this could potentially not be true. Do you know what I mean?
It's also someone telling a story, someone
Exactly.
remembering something that happened. Like the monster could be made up, the sirens, maybe they weren't there.
It's not just somebody recounting their story. It's somebody who's been like drugged out of their mind for the last like 7 years recounting a story too. So it's like a very unreliable narrator here. And if I think I did notice that anytime we're recounting a mythological aspect of the voyage,
Yeah.
it is when Matt Damon, or sorry, Odysseus is on the island with Calypso, and he is under the influence. So I think Nolan has purposefully like spliced in that element that he loves to do. Is like, oh, is any of this mythological, or is this really based in like realism, and it's all in their heads, and
Yeah.
that sort of thing, which was good. But I think when it did come to a couple of the fantastical elements, it had to be too much, too grounded, and I would have liked them to. We've said it before when we're doing our Nolan rankings.
Yeah.
We'd like him to get a little bit weird sometimes and go a little bit out there, and this again is a good opportunity to do that. And he doesn't, but that's his style. So
I think this is the one movie where, like I think it works perfectly for what it was trying to do. I mean, like not that it doesn't in other films, but like we have in our ranking, we have kind of like said that maybe Inception could have utilized the idea of dreams within dreams in a more creative way, instead of like showing
Yeah.
very, very mundane and realistic places within these dreams. But here, like the fact that it's a story, it's told by someone who's trying to remember it. And, of course, you're going to make up like some details of it. But also some of the stuff feels real, and it is real, like when, and we'll get to the scene Hades, but he takes something. Odysseus comes back from Hades with something that then he gives to Robert Pattinson characters.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like maybe that happened. Like it's the kind of stuff that is really makes you think. It's not cut and dry. Perfectly explained. Oh, this was clearly in Odysseus' head because he was dragged out of his mind. This could have happened. Maybe it didn't happen exactly like this, but it happened. So
yeah. But again, yeah, those elements of that I liked. I suppose it was just when there's two sequences where we encounter mythological beings, which I felt were almost a bit too sterile and grounded. But with two of my, one of them in particular was one of my favorite sequences in the movie, and I just wanted to.
I know
to
which
push
one.
Go on. What do you think it is?
I mean, it's the Cyclops. It's Polyphemus.
No, it's actually not. When they're sailing past the sirens, and he gets all the crew to put the wax in his ears, and he ties himself to the mast, and he's listening to the siren song, and he's losing his mind. Like, I thought that was brilliant. Like, I loved that scene so much.
I felt like that was the one scene where I was a bit disappointed, honestly, because it's literally what we've seen in many. Like, I like the idea of, oh, we're not gonna you're not gonna hear the song of the sirens, because it's much more evocative to hear silence and just Matt Damon losing his mind from the perspective of his crew. But it's just like a very quick scene. It's done and dealt with, and then we move on to the next one, and we don't really see the sirens. And like, I understand the idea, but like you could have done a little bit more. And we come back to the idea of maybe this movie should have been longer, I guess.
Absolutely. So that's when I mentioned, off that saying, it was I love the scene, but it could have gone further and could have gone so much weirder. Like, I don't know, maybe the crew member who takes his wax out, we see him step onto the island, and we get a little shot of the nymphs or the sirens on the island, and we see what they look like, and we see them have sort of changed from maybe beautiful to a bit demonic.
Yeah. Maybe that would have been the obvious choice. I guess Nolan didn't want the obvious stuff to, like we've seen this before, but
yeah, I just really like the way they framed it, and the technical aspects of how they shot this scene. Like, when the final crew member puts the wax in his ears, everything goes sort of like the sound goes off.
Yeah.
And I really liked the way Odysseus spoke about it afterwards. He was like, they were, the song was the most beautiful thing, but it recounted all my shame, and like the way he recounts what the song is to his men afterwards was really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was conceptually, that was like one of my favorite sequences in the film. But like, I think you mentioned off the bat, visually, the Cyclops scene, that could not be topped. Oh my god, dude, it looks so good.
we did the ranking of Nolan movies, and you mentioned that you wish that Nolan would go a little bit more horror sometimes, and you really liked in Begins when you have the visions of the fear gas, and and here we have a couple of sequences that are straight up horror. And I was like, oh, Tyler is gonna love that.
Like the scene when we first encounter the Cyclops, he picks up one of their men and he's eating them. And the sequence goes on for like way longer than I expected it to. We cut back to the Cyclops like a couple times eating the guy, and I was like, whoa, this is amazing. This is so good.
I love the design of the guy, the way that the eye, and like I didn't think that it was possible to find a new way to represent a Cyclops.
A classic Cyclops, yeah.
It's so well done. It's so real. It feels real. It feels just like a deformed guy, but it's huge.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. The
I
I think it's like a mixture of forced perspectives and like
yeah.
massive puppets, because like there are so many shots where you're like, that is just a man. That is a man on screen, but they've used the perspective to make him look massive, because it
Yeah.
looked like the only thing, like obviously his eye was, there was some CGI going on with his eye and his mouth, but the rest of his body, like it was so clear that it was in shot, in frame with the actors, like it was a real tangible thing. And oh man, I mean, plot wise, I don't like kind of love what happened in this scene. I think it,
Oh yeah.
but like in terms of visually and stylistically, wow, this was an absolute masterpiece.
I felt like, okay, so this is one issue that I had with the film. And similarly to the sirens, but like more in here because I really loved this scene and I was loving where it was going. But like, if you know the original text, you know that Polyphemus can talk and he converses with Ulysses multiple times. And Ulysses uses his cunning and strategy to kind of like trick the Cyclops. And then, like there's this famous line, when they finally manage to blind him, and Polyphemus is like, who did this? Who are you? And, I am nobody, he says in response to that. And so like that's the idea that then he would be like, oh, who did this to you, Polyphemus? It was like, oh, it was nobody did this to me. And all that stuff that Poseidon would be like angry with Odysseus and his crew because they blinded his son. So when Polyphemus starts talking, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing, because the voice was so good and like creepy
Yeah.
and like booming. I,
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, this is creepy as fuck. And I was expecting there to be a conversation between Polyphemus and Odysseus. But unfortunately, they cut it short and they just ran away. And then there's this chase sequence, and then they get to the boats, and that's the end of it. And I felt like that was such a missed opportunity, because
Yeah,
that would have made it so much more memorable. Like right now, it's just like a very cool monster sequence in the film, but it could
completely.
have been so much more if they had like a proper conversation with the guy. I thought, because with that voice
I
and
don't know why this just popped into my head, but like in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad,
oh yeah,
how they give, Starro was a great villain, but
yeah,
was just a big monster. And then, but they give him like one line to say at the end of the film, and he's like, "I
makes
wish I
this,
was just floating in the stars." And it solidifies him as more of a character rather than just an object in the plot.
yeah,
And
that
I totally agree with you. I was really hoping for like a conversation in this moment, and he was going to say something like, "Oh yeah, the gods will curse you," sort of kind of going down that direction.
because he starts talking, he talks to Poseidon, and that's why then his crewmates, Odysseus' crewmates, think that they were cursed by Poseidon because he was saying his name. But I don't think that's enough. Maybe there was a scene that was kind of like exploring that a little bit more, and it was cut. I don't know. I'm not sure.
And this is the
Missed
beginning
opportunity.
of this is the beginning of like 3 or 4 sequences now where the crew are just running away from something, chasing them back onto the ship.
Let's go on this island to find some food. Oh my God, there's something trying to kill us. Let's leave.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's
it
the
happens.
original poem anyway. So
Yeah, yeah. It happens a lot, and I mean, pretty like abruptly afterwards, we get the scene with the big giants, which, like, I don't know, is there more to this in the book? Because this felt a little bit like there was some substance left on the cutting room floor out of this one, because it is literally they bowl up to an island. I do like the how they frame the action, because we
yeah.
see the little kid who's
Oh
a
my God, yeah.
fucking giant. He's like turns around, he's got like a 3-year-old's face, and you're like, oh my God. Um, and yeah, I don't know. Does more? Is there more to this in the book?
Honestly, I don't remember, but I don't think so. Like, it's just I remember the idea of this big, uh, you know, uh, armored clad like uh people that like chase them, but like this was definitely the least interesting and least relevant and least memorable scene in the whole movie. And I was just mad because I mean, I know this is fantastical movie. There's monsters and giants and whatever, but we are supposed to be in Greece, and there's like a fir trees forest, and I'm like that we don't have those in the Mediterranean. I'm pretty sure they shot that scene like in Scotland, and it's supposed to be a Greek island, and I'm like, why? Just because it looks cool? Like I know it does, but it's not like. I don't know. Like I know it's a minor nitpick. It doesn't ruin the movie in any way. But I was so distracted. I was like, wait, why are we in Scotland all of a sudden? Why are we in the mountains?
Yeah, there's quite a few immersion breaking things like that in this. But yeah, so that was the Giants was a bit underwhelming, and you mentioned, when you were trying to guess my favorite scene, you might have guessed my favorite scene overall, or maybe my most unexpected scene, like the scene with Cersei, the
Oh
witches, the
God,
witches hovel, and oh
love
my
it.
God, again, like Nolan. I was just so shocked. I was like, we're watching a fucking David Cronenberg body horror right now. I was like, what is going on?
The way he decides to show the transformation of the soldiers in pigs was fantastic.
It was
Um,
amazing.
and also, like, since we are on this, I think we should mention the visuals and practical filmmaking on display is just unmatched.
Yeah.
This is probably one of the movie's greatest achievements, and at no point in a 3-hour movie I was taken out of the experience thinking, oh, that's CGI or that's fake. Everything feels tangible and physical and gigantic, and it's clearly they went the extra mile to make this feel real, and that I know that people don't care about this as much as of late because we're so used to CGI used in movies. But and of course there's CGI in this film, and there's practical effects and special effects and whatever, but it feels so real. Like even the scene, like simply the scene where they leave Troy and they are on the boat in the sea and they're
Oh
raising
my
the
God,
thing.
yeah.
It feels surreal. Like, oh my God, like we're not used to movies looking like this anymore.
I mean,
And
that's because I'm pretty sure they are, that's not some big studio like filled with water, some soundstage filled with water.
no.
They took a fucking boat and they are out on the open water for sure.
Yeah. And the one exception to this, I think, like the only moment that slightly broke my illusion were the animals on Cersei's island, like the lion and the tiger and the leopard, and like they were clearly composited into the frame, but they are composited extremely well. And more
Yeah,
importantly, they are real
I
animals.
suppose. Yeah. As long as
Which
they're
is very
real, dude.
important.
As long as they're real, dude, I'm happy. Like we just watched Disclosure Day
Oh
recently,
my
and Steven
God.
Spielberg can't even be asked to do a
No,
prop
no,
piece of a moose anymore. Like,
no,
so
no,
I'm just
let's.
thankful that someone's bringing animal handlers on set here.
CGI wildlife is everywhere, and I'm really happy when I see a director be like, no, I'm gonna shoot that fucking lion.
Yeah, 100%. There's a couple bits. I think some shots work better than others because there was some when I was like, oh, that looked a bit weird. Was that some CGI in there? And I think they're just composited onto the background. But I think that worked quite well. For me, obviously, yeah, technically this film's a masterpiece. That I thought the transformation into the pigs was like absolutely next level. Something that
So good, the whole thing. From them eating in a very disgusting way, and
Oh
then
my God,
finally,
yeah. I
yeah.
can't remember the exact name of the guy that did the practical effects for the thing, Rob something, and
Yeah.
like he would be proud of this shit. Like that's the kind of level we're working on here. But the
Rob
transformation,
Bottin.
Rob Bottin, yeah. But the transformation back was very quick, and it was like we did a tracking shot from behind the witch, and we pan to the right of her, and when we've crossed her body, they've already switched back to human. So, like, I don't think the transition back was as elegant, and she's doing this sort of silly line where she's like, "Oh, transform back into your disguises, transform back into your disguises," and like the transformation back wasn't as elegant as the transformation into it.
No, it was like Nolan was like, I've done the cool bit, let's just
Yeah.
move on.
Yeah. And also this was kind of a weird scene, and I think in the book it's supposedly quite different because the witch is almost treated as like a, like almost a bit of a deity or a prophet.
Yeah.
Odysseus says, "Don't harm her." The gods have
She's
given her these
sympathetic. Yeah.
powers. Yeah, she's a sympathetic villain for sure, even though she's incredibly evil, I imagine. There's so many
Yeah,
animals all over this
Cersei. Oh
island.
my god.
And oh my god, dude, like when the soldiers put their armor outside, I assume they're already under her trance, right? Because they put their armor outside and there's like 50 sets of armor all just like dusted on the floor next to them. You're
I
like,
wonder
dude,
what happened here.
you guys are gonna fucking die.
Like I love that sequence, and I felt like the actor did a great job.
I thought, Anne Hathaway deserves a lot of
She
credit. I
does.
thought her
She's
performance was
some
very
of the
good.
best. Yeah, she's great.
But I didn't. I thought maybe, yeah. I think because we rushed maybe some of the voyage sequences, I felt like we spent a bit too much time on Ithaca. But maybe if the film was 4 hours long, and you just extend sort of Odysseus's adventure, then maybe it feels more balanced to me. But yeah, I thought she was really good. Like I said, I really bought the relationship between her and Odysseus. There's been a lot of criticism about the score, and I
like the score.
I think the score it's probably one of Nolan's, like, on his least memorable side, I think. Yeah, I think
because it doesn't have the.
Yeah, I need more. It's but there's a couple sequences I love the music, and especially I think it's like the motif they play between Penelope and Odysseus, like whenever they're talking, is this very like, I don't know, it's kind of like harp or a stringed instrument or something, and I really like that. It's quite subtle, but for the most part, for the rest of the film, the music is a bit unmemorable, and there's a couple moments where it's a bit bombastically used, but that is so Nolan. There's a sequence when Odysseus mentions he might not come home at the very beginning of the film, and Penelope slaps him on the face, and they have a musical cue for the slap, like the orchestra, like dong, 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 like when she slaps him.
When he uses his bow, he always has this like.
Yeah, I quite like. I thought that was quite
string
cool.
Sound. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was quite cool.
But the flashback when they take Troy, I thought the music there was fantastic, and it literally gave me goosebumps as soon as the flashback starts. I have goosebumps, and then I kept having goosebumps for the 10 following minutes, and I think the music was a big part of that. So, yeah. I don't know. I liked it. Maybe on a second viewing, I will pick up on the music a little bit more and figure out if it's as memorable or not as memorable as I was thinking the first time around.
Well, I suppose just think about other top sort of Nolan films in that top 5, top 6. They all have really, really memorable scores, and more than just sort of 1 or 2 pieces of music. So I did think, especially for like what this film is, a big epic socks, I was about to say socks and sandals movie.
What?
Like a swords and
sword
sandals.
And sandal, yeah.
You have a big epic socks and sandals movie like this. Films like this of the past, they really utilize a big orchestral score and big epic crescendos and things like that. And I don't know, I feel like the music was a little bit of a disappointment in this one, besides a few pieces here and there.
Socks and Sandals is the German version of the Odyssey. I don't know. I like the score, but now that you are making me thinking about it, I feel like I didn't really notice the score as much as I usually do with a Nolan film. So I guess you're right. And then we were talking about Penelope. I thought she was great. Anne Hathaway in the role, I thought she was one of the better performances in the movie. Probably gonna get Best Supporting Actress nomination at the Oscars for sure. I loved Robert Pattinson as Antinous.
Yeah, he was very good.
He's so good at like playing as Marmy, fucking
slimy
villain, isn't
bastard. Yeah. No, he does play that role really, really well.
Is so good, and he's been great. Like I love Robert Pattinson. Yeah,
Like the little micro expressions, maybe when Penelope might say something, and you see his cheek twitch. There was quite a lot of like this cheek twitching thing he was doing with his performance, when you could tell he's seething under the surface, but he cannot show that because he's still trying to win Penelope's favor. So I thought he
yeah,
was
and
brilliant.
he and they have a couple of scenes together with Penelope where that he's conniving, like trying to get his way into, like he's trying to convince her, but he's actually like
Yeah, the
he
scene when
doesn't have the best intentions.
she's weaving the
Yeah,
tapestry. Yeah.
and he's also fucking her servant on the back, on the side, and the first servant, of course, is Mia Goth. But he's talking to her, and you're actually almost believing him, even though that
Yeah,
is
yeah, no,
not
100%.
genuine.
Yeah.
It's very good.
He
Yeah,
he
yeah, yeah.
convinces you, and it's actually that sequence where he straight after then, I think you get the reveal. He kisses Mia Goth's character, and you get the reveal that they've been sleeping together, and she
Yeah.
like gives him a little like a peck on the mouth and then like a flick on the nose with her finger, and it just felt really modern. I don't know, the way she
Yeah,
did it,
that's
it felt
true.
very modern, and I was like, oh no, what is this? It's like too. This feels like Euphoria I'm watching now, and I've never even seen Euphoria, but
That's probably what they do in every episode.
yeah.
But yeah, speaking of the ensemble, you mentioned Jean Leguizamo. I thought he was brilliant. Argo, such a good boy, does nothing the whole movie. Still a highlight.
Oh man, they fucked that up though.
Didn't give him enough of a moment with Odysseus at the end.
For sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that, and especially with like
Because
James
they
Gunn.
focus on Telemachus. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
James Gunn would kill for a plot point like this in a story already that he's developing. He's desperate to push these as much as he possibly can. Animal death sequence, that would get them. That would get the audiences. Whereas Nolan like brushes over this. The
yeah, he
dog
immediately
dies, and we
dies.
move
And
straight
then,
on.
and speaking of Odysseus, I wanted to say something. Kind of like a realization that I had, like thinking about the movie. Since we had like this huge retrospective on Nolan, and like we are very in tune with his themes and the stuff that he likes to portray and he likes to talk about in his movies. I felt like there's a lot of DNA in common between Odysseus and Oppenheimer as characters. Like they are both, like smart guys driven by, like passion and, like trying to do something, and they create something. In Odysseus' case, it is the plan to take Troy, and in Oppenheimer's case, it's like the atom bomb, and these something that
It's quite transgressive what both of them are doing, right?
yeah, they are kind of like
He's transgressing against Zeus's law, and like Oppenheimer's like transgressing against like the laws of nature in a way.
yeah, and they face like life-changing repercussions.
Yeah.
Not only them, but like the people around them, the people who follow them, their families. I think the parable is a very comparable, pardon the pun. So I thought it was interesting that like these central figures in these two stories in Nolan's most recent movies, they have this through line in common, that they do something that they maybe shouldn't have done, and they suffer the consequences of it. So I don't know. I thought it was an interesting tidbit.
Yeah, but I think what Oppenheimer maybe does better is that we get a bit of that like early joyous like part of Oppenheimer's life, and it's a bit lighter in tone at the beginning, whereas like this starts off very dour, because of the
it stays dour.
Yeah, because the narrative structure, like Odysseus is already, he's lost and he's trapped, and he's lost in his mind as well. Having some time where he like bonds with his soldiers, bonds with his crew, like you could see him being a bit happy at the beginning in a sequence, and how they how they look up to him as a leader. Why he's so charismatic, and why all his men and all the people around him look up to him so much. I feel like they did miss a little bit of that at the beginning to kind of set us on this tone, because from all we see of Odysseus, he is this broken man who's completely, bound by his trauma from what he did in Troy. but then he, like how he tackles the Cyclops and how he tackles the Sirens. It's like he's clearly quite an arrogant man, and he wants to.
Yeah. He shoots an arrow when it really shouldn't, and he shouldn't have done it.
Absolutely. And he wants to listen to the siren song like no man has ever done before. So he has this arrogance and this like bravado about him, which you don't really get because he's quite dour as a character, and like in terms of the structure of the film is quite dour. But yeah, so just like a couple, I think I would have liked to have seen that, maybe like them heading off to Troy, and like he's having some some like nice moments with his men.
I liked his crew. I thought they worked in their roles. I mean, they're very, I guess, one note. Like they're one collective, kind of like it's Odysseus and the crew. Like, you have Imesh Patel, and it's like kind of like the leader, but it makes sense, like the focus is on him, and those are his men, and they all suffer the same fate. They all die one by one. But like there was one guy, and I looked him up. It's Andrew Howard.
Which one
of
was
the crewmates? Is like the bold.
He's from
British...
Limitless, right?
I think so. I think
he plays. I think he plays the Russian gangster guy from Limitless. I recognize the
Limitless.
face. Yeah,
he's in a bunch of stuff. It just looks like a Guy Ritchie guy. Like
I
just
know.
feels like
I'm totally with you, dude. I'm totally with you. I don't know whether because he has like a gold tooth or something. Like he has like this East London Cockney geezer look.
There you go. Like it was in Revolver by Guy Ritchie.
Of course he was.
And so like I was like, who is?
I'm sure he was probably born on the set of Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. This fella. For me, I'm a bit of maybe like a purist in that sense. Like I would have loved Robert Eggers to have come on board and helped with the dialogue in this.
He would have done
I mean?
like a completely different thing.
He would have done a completely different thing. But if you help Nolan write the dialogue, just have a bit more authenticity in the dialogue. It would have sold me on the whole world so much more. Before we move on to kind of like our closing thoughts, but I wanted to say that scene when they go to Hades, and he talks to kind of like the ghosts of the dying, like the soldiers who died, and you have that monologue by Elliot Page. I thought that scene was terrific, man. It was so good. Like the emotion there, and kind of like that's kind of like the thesis that he let all these people die, and he's paying the consequences, and his men who also pillaged and destroyed and murdered and did also horrible things, they're gonna pay the ultimate price. But and how this also kind of like connects back to the ending when he kills Robert Pattinson's character, because he was the one who was supposed to go to war instead of Elliot Page's character. Yeah,
so I was like, man, this scene is incredible. I love the setting, how creepy and like just like moody it was.
Visually this was so cool, the way the soldiers came out the ground, and they weren't quite zombies, but they were like, they looked a bit dead, and they were covered in mud. And I loved the summoning ritual, like the sacrifice blood in that, like the shield, and anyone who spoke would have to come and sort of drink a bit of the blood, and then they could speak. It was it felt very akin to, this felt like it'd been taken straight from the books.
And also you have that scene that sparked some controversy in the trailers, where like Matt Damon is like, let's go. And people are like, oh my God, that is so out of place. Like he's leading his men into battle and he's saying it like that. Like that's a horrible performance.
I didn't even clock it, like I was kind of in my head. I was like, oh, when does he say this really dumb let's go bit? And it was like that, the scene, it engrossed me so much I didn't even realize that that's when he said it.
But like this is why we shouldn't talk about that stuff without the context, because in the context of the scene it makes sense that he would say it like that, and that scene would be framed like that, because he's not leading his men into battle, he's just running away from corpses who are trying to chase him. It makes sense.
But Tommy, this is on them. Promotional material is there to be judged.
That's true. I
don't think they I think the trailers weren't
Did not do this
misrepresentative, but I
justice.
don't no, I think the trailers could have done a better job at portraying what this movie is.
And this movie will make $1 billion anyway.
Do you think so?
I think it's gonna do very well. I mean, I know this is anecdotal, but like my screening was full, and it was an afternoon screening in original language, which is not usually like the more frequented type of screening in Italy.
Yeah.
And like the cinema that I want to go to next week, it's been booked for weeks. So I think people are really showing up for this movie, and they're really excited. And I finally have like with my larger group of friends, like they all are, they went to see it already, or they plan to see it, and they're talking about it on like the group chat. I'm like, oh my god, people are talking about a movie instead of football and I don't know, fucking whatever. It's like insane. So people are responding to this.
Let's give it a rating, and we'll also say where we kind of think it lies within our overall ranking of Nolan movies.
That's gonna be very hard, man. It is difficult to give it a rating, especially because we didn't really give ratings to the other Nolan movies. We just ranked them.
Thank God we didn't, because that would have been a mess.
But I think this movie deserves nothing less than an 8, probably more. I want to watch it again before I cast my final judgment, but I let's say 8 for now. And as where it stands in his filmography, in Nolan's filmography, I think this comfortably lands in my top 5, or at worst top 6.
Oh,
Christopher Nolan
this
films.
is in your top 5.
Yeah.
Wow,
Like,
you loved it. Okay, wow.
I really, really enjoyed this, man. Again, maybe recency bias, maybe, like I was anticipating it and it surprised me. It was better than I thought. So
yeah,
these are all factors that, maybe my judgment is skewing too positive. I really want to see it again. But as of now, it's like either top 6 or top 5 Christopher Nolan films. And I really, really loved it. What about you?
I think maybe a 7.5. Maybe on second viewing it could reach that 8, or it could potentially go down to a 7. It's somewhere between that 7 and 8 ranking. And for me, I'm just looking at my Nolan list, and I have it either goes above or below The Dark Knight Rises at number 7 for me.
All right.
I really enjoyed it. It's that much higher on the list than I thought it was.
Nice. He did it again.
He's done it.